And welcome to Off the Couch, where psychology meets everyday life. I'm Dr. Greg Cason, psychologist, and I'm here with Bryan Gomez, who is our producer, joining the conversation. And also on sound, do we have DJ Sammy?
We do.
DJ Sammy G. Hey, hey.
Hey.
So this week in psychology, we're going to ask the question, do crypto bros have creepy personalities? And speaking of personalities, who's got a better one? We're going to actually answer that one. Do cigar smokers or cigarette smokers? And we're going to talk about the one psychological change that you can make to live longer. So let's talk crypto. Bryan, do you have crypto in your life?
No, I've thought about it, but I do not. I kind of feel like it's not trustworthy and made up in a way. Like, I don't know. I haven't wrapped my finger around that one yet.
And what about you, DJ?
Oh my God, I don't even begin to understand it. I could never.
I have never but ventured into it, but I used to get all kinds of people trying to talk to me about it. The people corner you at parties about it. They'll send you emails about it. They contact you on social media about it. Have you guys had that happen?
I have friends that like have done it. Like my little brother has done it, and he was like trying to tell me to do it and like how he's made money off of it. And one of my really good friends, he bought a house out here with crypto that I'm like, what? Like, it doesn't sound real, but people are using it to buy stuff. And
people,
make
if
money
they got
off
in
of it.
early enough, they probably could have made money.
Yeah.
But that isn't the case for everyone, and I'm not sure that everyone who gets into it, we're going to talk about them. We'll talk about them. Let's say since the intervention of Bitcoin back in 2009, the cryptocurrency market has gone from zero to over $2 trillion. And Bitcoin was worth $1 in 2011 and skyrocketed up to $63,000, and now it hovers around $42,000. So if you invested in Bitcoin when it first came out, and I remember when it first came out, and I remember thinking maybe I should invest some money in that, and I didn't because it just didn't sound right, and I wasn't sure how you'd even access it. But that thought came up for me, so you're going to wonder about me as we talk about people who buy crypto and their personalities. But then you'd be making quite a bit of money. To go from $1 to $42,000 would be a huge amount. So that does explain why some people, not everyone, some people have lost a great deal of money. Like if you bought at the $63,000 mark and it was down to $42,000 today, you've lost a great deal of money.
It seems like a big gamble, I would say, right? Like legal gambling almost.
That is true. There's large fluctuations. They're common. This is considered highly speculative. So the question about who would buy them has been a source of psychological research. And there was a study done by the University of Toronto and the University of Miami, and their objective was to examine the relationship between crypto ownership and personality traits. And they surveyed 2,000 American adults in 2022. I thought this was good because they really just expanded previous research that was done in Australia, which I'll refer to a little bit. But that was done with about 600-700 people. But they said, what's the American market like for this? And they found that of the 2,000 people they surveyed, a full 30% said they owned it now or in the past. So that's a lot. That's 30%. That's 3 in 10. And participants were reported their demographic, political, psychological, and social traits. So this is some pretty hefty research. The key findings: crypto ownership is associated with something called the dark tetrad personality traits. If you don't know what that is, we're going to explain it to you. It's not so great. But why could that be? High potential returns attract people who like gambling. It's not issued or backed by governments like traditional currencies, making crypto attractive to people who distrust government. Let's talk about the dark tetrad. To do that, we have to talk about the dark triad. Bryan, do you remember that we talked about the dark triad once before?
Yes, we've had conversations with it.
Yeah, the dark triad is it's just kind of a thing that's been out there quite a bit. And we have a little bit of a graphic if you can watch the YouTube space. But bottom line is dark tetrad is associated with 3 types of personality traits. One is psychopathy, one is Machiavellianism, and one is narcissism. So let's talk about the first one, psychopathy. Psychopathy is callous, impulsive, antisocial personality trait. Do you know these people? Callous, impulsive, and antisocial people. When I say antisocial, that's psychology, antisocial. That means going against people, not the lay public who thinks antisocial means being shy. That's actually asocial, but people like to use the word antisocial. But antisocial means going against people, actually doing things that can hurt people. They're reckless. They tend to be resistant to stress and anxiety. They like stimulus seeking and risk taking, and they're prone to gambling and addiction. The next one is Machiavellianism, and that's named after the Italian philosopher Niccolo Machiavelli. DJ, have you gotten to Machiavelli in your schooling yet?
No.
Did you in high school?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's not probably a high school book, but definitely college reading. Pretty good. Bryan, do you know Machiavelli?
The name sounds so familiar, so I know it's
right.
crossed my brain at some point.
Well, he's written several things, but people who rate highly on this trait are good at deception and interpersonal manipulation. It's like a dark way of looking at people. Machiavellianism, it's sort of seeing them from their dark sides, that they operate that way, and that it's okay to deceive and to manipulate to get your means done. Machiavellians also tend to believe in government conspiracies. Probably because they like the world to be cut up in simple ways. They like the world to be more black and white, to be simple explanations. If, they can be told a story and all the data pieces can fit into that story, they'll think that story is true. And that's how conspiracy theories work quite a bit. But if we just, sometimes we get data and we can't really tell a great story around it, as probably this podcast shows, but we'll do our best. And why crypto for Machiavellianisms is that they distrust politicians and government agencies. And then narcissism. How many of you know narcissists?
We all do, I feel like. But I'm kind of confused how, if they're so distrustful of the government, how they're so trusting of this.
Oh, we'll talk about crypto a bit more, because crypto is not backed by the government.
No, I know, but just in general, if you have distrust, and it's how are you so easily trusting this new thing?
It's fascinating. When I really dove into it, in many ways I was left with more questions than answers, but I'll try to give the top line results. But I think you're asking good questions, actually. Let's talk about the narcissism personality trait. Then I want to go into the fourth aspect. Then we'll go into crypto a little bit, how these things kind of fit. So narcissism is a self-centered personality trait. DJ, do you know narcissists?
I think I know narcissists.
Of course you do. Of course you do. And it's all the rage on the internet. Everyone wants to accuse everyone of being a narcissist. Narcissism, though, in the diagnosable personality trait, can be very problematic. But the study said not necessarily that they're diagnosed with these things, but that they have these traits. And this is what really it gets a little muddy. But when we see these traits, they're correlations. Traits being like little aspects of parts of oneself. So narcissism is self-centered trait. It's characterized by feelings of privilege and predominance over other people. Narcissists are overconfident, and they're more willing to do things like make risky investments, because they always think things are going to turn out well. They tend to focus on the positive side of life, and they have great faith in the future. They love that positive doctrine. You can just see the world in a positive way and everything will turn out great. They're confident, and their confidence actually helps improve their own lives. I think that's probably the most interesting thing, is confidence does help us take decisive action, and narcissists because they are less critical of themselves, can take some decisive action that can benefit them in the end. So how about that? The fourth aspect, though, is sadism or sadistic personality traits. This one's a little scary. This is people who are hostile, inability to feel empathy, inability to feel remorse, viciousness, enamored by violent video games and media, and lack of responsibility. Sadism is a personality that actually enjoys other people's suffering. Sadists display aggression and cruel behaviors, and they enjoy trolling the internet for enjoyment. When they say trolling, it's like going on and making negative comments or saying things that will flame the argument, like people will say flaming things. And though crypto doesn't harm others per se, it seems like at the same time that sadists don't like they do like to harm others, they also don't like to miss out on gains. It's like they just see the world in a very transactional way, and they like to hurt people, and they enjoy hurting people, but they also want to benefit from the world. So it's more transactional. The four together seem to be what make up this attraction to crypto. And I have a graphic, and I'm just going to describe it, but it's kind of displays these four things and how that actually plays to the attitude toward crypto. So we've got narcissism leads to positivity, which will lead to your attitude toward cryptocurrency. And then we have Machiavellianism, which we talked about. That's that sort of sinister view of the world. That's seeing, the world, people as just kind of, it's seeing the world in a more dark way. Also transactional they can lead to conspiracy beliefs, the Machiavellianism. And the Machiavellianism, the psychopathy, and the sadism all can add up to that fear of missing out. They don't want to miss out on a good thing, a good time. So that extra positivity about things, Bryan, the conspiracy beliefs, thinking, we got to have these simple solutions. Here's this thing, cryptocurrency that's different than everything else, and fear of missing out. I don't want to miss out on those big gains, all lead toward this positive attitude toward cryptocurrency. And it may be why people who are into cryptocurrency can be so annoying at parties.
Oh my God, they are pretty annoying. They're always trying to get you to get into it. And
I don't know what parties you guys are going to. No one talks about crypto at any parties that I've ever been to.
Not at the college parties?
Not at the college parties.
Oh God.
Right on. I think I think it's gone way down. I mean, I haven't encountered that kind of discussion
in a while,
long time.
But it would seem like a pyramid scheme conversation, kind of,
Well, a lot of people do view it as that because it kind of grew from nothing. It is a blockchain. It's a math problem. People into crypto, actually, I'm not going to present, well, we talk about this, which is that they're kind of into science. They're smart. They can be smarter people. There's kind of an interesting piece about them. Let's talk about them. Crypto owners are significantly younger than the non-owners. They were an average of 38 years old versus 52 years old of the non-owners in this study. And that's a big difference. They're also largely male, which is not a surprise. They tend to be more educated than the non-crypto owners. They have a higher income than the non-crypto owners, and they tend to be more religious than those who have never owned crypto. What was also interesting is a racial breakdown. There was kind of a weak association. I think it was pretty weak. That the weak association with being black or Hispanic was up a little bit, but the one that was also was that owning crypto was not significantly associated with people who identified as white. I mean, that was just interesting, that this might be more appealing to in different groups. Other findings are that people attracted to cryptocurrency tend to be more argumentative, fun, and they tend to be anti-authoritarian. So they don't like someone telling them what to do. And this is what's really fascinating. Like, who are these people? This is where it starts to really break down in kind of some interesting ways. They rely, and there was a big association with reliance on fringe social media. And the top 5 for crypto bros was Telegram, which is a super conservative. Isn't that the one that it disappears when you enter a message and then it disappears?
I don't know. Honestly, I've only encountered Telegram for that's what the drug dealers use to they list their clients and send messages out being here's a deal. It's the only time I've ever seen it being used. Well,
good old, there you go, Telegram. Now we know. Telegrams used to be these things you would go to an office and they would type it up and they would send it official to be delivered, and they go Telegram and they'd hand it to you or read it. I guess that doesn't exist anymore. Now it's just a drug communication device.
Maybe it's for other things. I don't know.
Oh, it is. Well, at least
I guess crypto.
Yeah, crypto. YouTube was number 2. Reddit was number 3. Twitter. I mean, these just aren't surprising, are they? And 8chan. Do you guys know what 8chan is? Well, now they call it 8kun, 8can, or
I have no idea what that is.
I have no idea.
You have no idea. Okay. So 8chan I was familiar with because 8chan, kind of an interesting device. And if you watch some documentaries on kind of these dark things, which I can be interested in sometimes, 8chan and 4chan before that came up a lot. They come up a lot.
I know 4chan.
Yeah. Yeah. These kind of alternative sites that are out there, but 8chan tends to be more alternative, or at least that's what, I mean, I could be wrong, but the site has been linked to white supremacy, neo-Nazism, the alt-right, racism, anti-Semitism, hate crimes, and multiple mass shootings, and child pornography. I mean, that is one busy site.
Wow.
And crypto, I guess. Yeah. How about that?
I mean,
if the shoe fits, no, I'm playing you guys.
Well, they did get rid of the 8chan. Now it's the 8kun. That's as far as I got. I didn't actually look at it myself because I'm I'll trust the data on that one. They also tend to be very politically diverse. So our crypto bros can be very all over the place politically. There's a lot of diversity among crypto owners, either left, right, in between, or they just don't identify in such a way. But they can often believe, a common belief was American exceptionalism, thinking that American exceptionalism belief is kind of an odd one. I've always found it a little odd, but it's a common belief that somehow we're better. As a country. I mean, we're challenging that notion, seems like, on a daily basis. But yes, somehow we're better than that. But also the beliefs that the U.S. should be a more masculine place.
I'm dead. Oh my God. They're probably change the Statue of Liberty. Make it a man.
Look, I know crypto bros are listening right now, and apologies. I'm not trying to down you. This is just what the study says. So, what's interesting about this study is that this isn't going to be everyone. This is just how data lies out, and this is why it started to frustrate me, because I really needed more of a breakdown in different ways. They went for these big categories, which tell us big things, but some of the associations are weaker than I would like to see. So that means that there are a good number of people who don't have these beliefs. But the fact that if you line up people who will have crypto and people not have crypto, that these are the beliefs that the crypto people will have. So another one is the beliefs the U.S. should be governed by Christian values. Additionally, crypto ownership is positively associated with, here we come, Bryan, trust in government. And that really threw me off, because it's like they distrust government or they trust government. And I'm like, this is where I started to get very confused. But they stay informed on politics and current events. And there's a belief that one can influence political processes at an individual level, which I was glad to know about that. I mean, I hope they hold that belief and don't feel despondent and get out there and vote and do those types of things. I'm glad they stay informed, but if they're staying informed from Telegram and 8chan, maybe those aren't the best sources. I'm just saying.
Sure, they're
or
staying
Twitter.
informed for like their own benefit, for like whatever they could gain off of it. I don't think it's like staying informed for like the good of the people.
Yeah. So other beliefs, extremist beliefs. So individuals who purchase cryptocurrencies are more supportive of extremist groups and are somewhat likely to identify on the extremities of partisan ideology. We saw correlations, and they were significant, 0.001 for p-value. I mean, they were significant, but I would not want to actually meet someone with crypto and say they think these things, because the correlation was still weak. If anyone knows research, the correlation was about 0.35. So it's, it's enough to be showable, but that means there's a lot of them, but it doesn't mean everyone. So we're going to just hit with a few of these things. This was in the study. White nationalists, QAnon believers, Vladimir Putin admirers, Proud Boys, and Antifa identifiers, and left-wing authoritarian beliefs. So you see all over the map. Yeah. All over the map. Implications. So I think what this study showed, it kind of went in a very different direction for me. What I was excited that, this is interesting. Crypto bros have this dark personality, this kind of dark tetrad, and it kind of enabled us to be able to talk about the dark tetrad, which is kind of fun. This isn't the normal person out there. These are kind of unusual people, but maybe crypto just attracts more unusual people. And that might be because for a number of reasons, including trust or distrust in government. Scientific trust in scientists. They have trust in scientists. I mean, that was actually kind of interesting. They're better at math, which is great.
They would have to be if it's
they
finance.
stay informed.
I would hope.
Well, I mean, they're educated. I mean, people into it. Okay, there's something going on, but I think there's a lot of shiftiness. So really understanding what it is, I think people should not get involved in it unless they really understand it. And that there's probably a lot of room for ripping other people off and doing things like that. So that's where I'm concerned about. If we were to regulate, which, I mean, I think with a lot of things that are happening in our government, like, are we going to get regulations? Who knows? But, around crypto, I think that's been something that's been pushed for over and over, but who knows if that'll ever happen. It's right now, it'll just remain on the fringe until something happens. But people can trade it in and get money for a house. I know these people can get a car, and, people can actually, some people have done well on it, but I don't know that they are the norm. I think they're the exception.
No, and like you said, it's not easy. Like, it's work. Like, it's literal homework. I feel like you have to keep up with what's happening every single day. Like, I feel like some people make it their whole job,
Well, then that's like people who are day traders or people who work the stock market or do futures trading. I mean, none of those are things that I think I would dip my toe into because it's just not my area. But I think what's interesting here and what we really need to see more research around this, we want to be cautious about just saying every crypto bro is exactly this way. But what you can do is when you meet a crypto bro is to be able to ask those questions like, hey, what are you into? Like, what's going on here? Tell me more, like about you, as opposed to tell me more about crypto, and get to know the person, really find out. And, we'd want to understand the social, psychological factors, but I think another thing is to understand where people are getting their media and their information. To me, that was kind of the standout piece of information. It's like, if they're getting their information from alternative sites almost uniformly. I mean, that was fascinating. So it's not that they don't get some mainstream news, but that was much lower than the norm, than like the control group, the group that doesn't get crypto. So interesting. So, hey, like DJ Sammy G, who would you rather do? Would you rather do a cigarette smoker or a cigar smoker?
Oh, neither, but probably cigarettes.
Why was that?
Because I feel like cigars, if you're a cigar smoker and not a cigarette smoker, what are you doing? Not like that way, but like, what are you doing just smoking cigars?
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a certain type of person to smoke a cigar. Like, people don't, it's not a normal thing to smoke cigars, I
but
would
also,
say.
both smell a little strange.
It's strong. Like, the
I'm
smells are strong.
Not a fan.
No.
They both smell bad. I can tell you, excuse me, a little story about me.
Sorry.
When I was,
now,
what?
I'm like, he's smoking right now. No.
I only smoke when I'm on fire, but when I was a kid, my sister was born. I was 6 years old. And my dad had my brother and I sit down on the bed. And my brother was 7, I was 6. And he lit up a cigar and to celebrate my sister being born, and had us each puff on it, or whatever you do, the cigar. Well, I got it, and I think it smelled disgusting. I don't know what I was 6 years old. I took a puff, and I just choked. And I can't even tell you. I coughed and choked, and it was the most unpleasant thing in the world. My dad's like, take more, do it again. And I'm like, no, no. And my brother, who's 7 years old, the opposite. And I'm convinced that had an effect, because we saw other traits later like that. But anyway, so we're going through this particular exercise, and to this day, whenever I smell cigar smoke, it makes me physically ill.
Oh,
Isn't that wild? And I know it's tied to that exact thing.
That moment.
That is a behavioral, that's like aversion therapy, what I went through unintentionally. He wasn't intending to make me to see cigars as an aversive stimulus. That's basically what it is. But that was like aversion therapy for a 6-year-old. So I got very sick. So I really don't like that. My grandparents, though, smoked like chimneys. And when I would go to their house, we would walk into they lived in mobile homes or houses. And I just, every single one, you'd walk in, and it would be like a thick cloud of smoke. And I used to laugh about it because you couldn't see the other side of the room sometime. It would be that thick with smoke.
With cigarettes, right?
With cigarette smoke.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they were just chain smokers. They were just all about it. Big drinkers too, but they smoked a lot. And although I didn't like cigarettes, it didn't offer me the turnoff, because I associated this with, people I cared about. So it was kind of it's an interesting thing for me to look at those two things. And I didn't associate that with something aversive, but just to think every time I stayed with my grandparents or did stuff with them, with the secondhand smoke was nothing to be trifled with. I mean, it was hardcore. And I think there were about 3 packs a day. It's a pretty significant cigarette habit on each of their parts. And they used to send me down to the store to buy cigarettes. I would go and get stuff. And they go, I would say her name. I don't want to say it. And I would just, she's dead, but it's of lung cancer, as you can imagine, in her 50s. I mean, it's very sad. I mean, it's very, very sad, my grandma. But they'd be like, okay, here you go. So how about that? Anyway, so this study wanted to link personality traits of people who smoked. They wanted to say, who are these people? Now, this study was done in a bunch of different countries, 11 different countries, but so they did not really look at marijuana. And I thought that was notable because that's a common smoke thing, nor any smokable other drugs. They only looked at cigarettes and cigars because the countries they looked in, which were European countries, those tend to be the common smoke things. So the University Católica Portuguesa in Lisbon, Portugal, and Western Governors University in Salt Lake City, Utah. How about that? They got together to do this analysis. They examined the link between personality traits and this smoking behavior, and they looked at older adults. And that because they didn't want to trifle with someone who's experimenting. They wanted some people with some smoke under their belt. And that also will over-include more cigar smokers because a lot of people don't take that up till they're older. So they looked across 11 countries across Europe, and this included Israel was one of the countries. 50 years and older, about 60% of the sample was male and 40% female, and 55% of the sample never smoked. So again, we're having like the never buy crypto, the never smoke, and we're putting them into two different groups. And the two different groups are going to be compared with each other. But for this one, we're going to compare them with something called the Big Five personality traits. We talked about the Big Five personality traits when we talked about the dancer personality. So let's talk about the Big Five personality traits. They have a 5 factors are in the Big Five personality traits, and they spell ocean, O-C-E-A-N. And I'll go through each one. The Big Five personality traits, number 1 is openness. That's intellectual curiosity, creativity, preference for novelty and variety. Conscientiousness is a tendency to be organized and dependable and disciplined. Very dependable people. Extroversion, people who are sociable, energetic. They have a tendency to seek stimulation in the company of other people. There's agreeableness. These are people who are compassionate, cooperative, friendly towards others. People like agreeable people. And neuroticism, this is maybe the one negative one in its expression, is emotional instability and the tendency to experience negative emotions like anxiety, anger, and depression. I like to embrace the neurotic one whenever I can. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think? And when looking at the 5 factors, what do you think? Tell me about, let's start with cigarette smokers. What do you think? And then we'll talk about the data.
Oh, I for sure think it's like the neurotic ones. I always associate smoking cigarettes with like people stressed out. Like I feel like that's what I see when somebody is like a chain smoker is like somebody like on their work break or their smoke break just going in on the cigarette. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And what do you think, DJ?
I mean, I grew up with parents who were very, very against smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
My dad from literally a very, very, very young age was like, if I ever catch you smoking a cigarette, I'm hitting you. Like, I won't hit you, but if you ever smoke a cigarette, I will hit you.
Wow.
Like that is who he was. That is who he is. So I grew up not being surrounded by cigarette smokers. He's a paramedic. He has seen a lot of the negatives on that.
Oh yeah.
But colleges, so many people get drunk and smoke cigs, and they say it doesn't count. They're like, a drunk cig doesn't count. I smoke, I'm not a smoker because I only smoke cigarettes when I'm drunk. But the amount of people that I think every single personality trait has the opportunity to be a smoker for different reasons.
Well, that is right. And I want to say that statement's actually very astute because every single personality trait is going to be a smoker. But what we're going to talk about is a sort of, in this study, just the ones, what emerged as a pattern with smokers.
And by the way, my dad is a great person. He
sounds great.
He's not abusive at all, I swear. Super
Your dad, I'm
Just
telling you,
me.
without knowing anything else about him, he's conscientious. He has a tendency.
He's a smart man.
Is he organized, dependable, and disciplined? And also probably...
He's fine.
Oh. Well...
I don't know. He's energetic. He's cool.
He's energetic. Is he agreeable, compassionate, cooperative, friendly? Okay.
He's pretty friendly.
Right on. Okay.
He's a cool guy.
It's good that he didn't want you to smoke. You don't need to smoke either way.
Yeah.
So he was doing you a favor.
It set me up for success,
Yeah.
I would say. It's not something that's needed.
My dad was very anti-smoking because of the world he grew up in, just the same. But he wasn't that for health reasons. I don't know what he was that for. He just for yelling at other people in restaurant reasons. But we went back here, you know, and I'm sure it was the same in New York where you are, in Texas where you are, definitely. And I think in some states it's still quasi this way. But they were there were things called smoking sections in restaurants, which were kind of a joke because it was like half the restaurant and one side would be smoking, and then the smoke somehow made its way into the non-smoking section. My favorite was being
no sense.
My favorite was buying a non-smoking seat for an air flight, and the person behind me was smoking, and I asked the flight attendant, I said, I bought isn't this the non-smoking section? She said, yes, it ends where you are sitting and the person behind you is in the smoking section. I mean, a lot of good. It meant I couldn't smoke, but I still inhaled the smoke. So I really applauded when we went to, you know, not having things like airplanes and restaurants as having smoking, because it really does, just when you're a non-smoker, it really disturbs you. But
it just sounds insane that we even allowed that, you know, on a plane. I'm like, wow, I can't even imagine somebody smoking on a plane now.
And think about it, because here it is. So smokers are more extroverted. Of course, they are less conscientious and less agreeable. They're kind of cranky, and they're low conscientiousness. They think that causes lack of self-discipline and disregard for long-term health consequences. That was the reason I kind of thought your dad might be conscientious, because he was really looking out for the type of thing.
He's conscientious. He's a smart man.
Yeah. No, he sounds like a smart guy. And they have reduced agreeableness. They persist in the face of societal disapproval. They don't care what other people think. You know, screw you. They tend to be like rebels sometimes. Some people are. And they're more extroverted. They may enjoy the social nature of smoking. Neither of you watched Friends, did you?
I've seen episodes.
Oh, they addressed this brilliantly with one of the characters on Friends, Rachel. Couldn't get a promotion at her company and realized all the power was with the smokers. And so what she did is she took up smoking so she could go outside, because all the power conversations were happening during the smoke breaks.
No, it's funny because on Family Guy, Peter does the same thing. He realizes his coworker is taking all these smoke breaks and isn't doing the job. So he's like, oh, I'm going to take up smoking too, and then keeps going on smoke breaks so he doesn't have to do any work.
Oh, good old Family Guy. I mean, it always has lots of truth pearls. So there's neuroticism is actually high too. And so here it is, that this goes to what you were saying, Bryan. Highly neurotic individuals often struggle with emotional regulation, and they may resort to smoking for anxiety and stress relief. And what's interesting to me too is the addiction actually feeds this, because as they become addicted to the nicotine and then they're not having the nicotine, they can be very agitated. So they begin to associate the relief, you know, with the administration of the nicotine through the smoking. And smoking, if you don't know, it's a very fast administration. It goes right to the brain. Like, here it comes. It's going into the system through the lungs.
I always wondered too if, like, when you're smoking, because you know how like meditation and like breath work, you know, when you breathe in, it kind of soothes you and stuff like that. But I always wondered if like smoking kind of had that same effect, because you are taking a breath in, you know. Well,
there could be that too. It could be that too. You could have controlled breathing. Cigar smokers are different though. So Sammy, your cigar smokers might be a whole different breed. And that's what really kind of is interesting to me. They tend to be lower neuroticism than cigarette smokers. Like, they're not neurotic. This is a pretty normal group of people, at least according to this study.
Well, I feel like a cigar is more like you take your time to relax and enjoy the cigar.
It's a photo op.
You know, it's like
it's a photo
you just want to sit back with like a little, you know, little glass of something and a cigar and just enjoy the moment. That's what I think of whenever people would smoke a cigar.
They have higher openness to new experience. Remember openness. Openness is intellectual curiosity, creativity, preference for novelty and variety. They're higher than either cigarette smokers or non-smokers. So like they seem to be pretty cool. Reminder to myself. I actually wrote that out in the next line. I just told you. So, and may I say though, this was kind of interesting because there's just such vast variety in the two types of people. But one thing disappointed me about this study, and maybe this is just completely fallen out of favor, but there was no pipe smoking talked about. Do you guys know any pipe smokers? Yeah, my great grandfather was a pipe smoker, and I loved the smell when I was a kid. I loved it. I grew up around a lot of clouds, like it was just happening. You know, a lot of clanking of glasses from alcoholic drinks, and a lot of cigarettes when I was at my grandparents' house. When I was at my house where I grew up, there was no smoking or really alcohol. It was kind of. That's what it was.
But you really like the smell of the pipe.
I used to as a kid.
Oh,
it was
now
like,
I'm curious. I'm like, what is it?
It was like a sweet smell. So I had to wonder, what about cigar smoke? I mean, pipe smokers, but I think it's kind of almost completely fallen out of favor. I think what this says is if they want to do public health messages, they have to appeal differently to cigar smokers and cigarette smokers. And, there's just a few different things that might be happening. And the last study I did want to talk about was, what is the one thing you can do to bring a longer life to you? There's one psychological thing you can do, and this study actually looks at it. And I did a study with 49,000 women in 2016, and they pulled out, they looked at long-term data. They looked at the study from the long-term nurses health study. So these women worked as nurses. So they're a very special group in many ways. And that's one of the limitations of this study. We want to understand a little bit more about why, is it just nurses or not? But they looked at 49,000 from 2016 with an average age of 79 years old. So these are people that have lived a long time. Average age. That means it's going to pull up a lot higher. They're going to be people much older than that. And they looked at something called gratitude. And yes, that is the thing. And let's talk about that. They gave them a gratitude test. I have found so much to be thankful for. People said things like that. Or if I had to list everything I felt grateful for, it would be a very long list. Well, how would you guys answer? I have so much to be grateful for or thankful for.
Oh, I'm constantly grateful for everything. Like, just randomly I'll be driving and I'm just like, I'm so thankful that I even have this car, or like going to this place and I'm able to go to this place. I don't know. It sounds a little crazy, but like I am just really grateful for the little moments. Sometimes, they could all be gone instantly. So that's why I'm like, I'm really happy and grateful for what I have. I'm
glad to hear that. And DJ, are you grateful on a daily basis?
I'm grateful for at least one thing every day. I will say sometimes the negative can overshadow things that I'm grateful for.
It can.
But at the end of the day, I have a roof over my head. I have a family that I get to talk to every day. I have people who in my life who love me, who I love, and I feel like that's all I need to be grateful for as a baseline.
I love you guys. This feels good to be around you.
It feels good. It feels good to feel really
good.
Acknowledge it. It makes you happy in your little heart somehow,
So, and I even thought if I had to list everything I felt grateful for, it would be a very long list. And I'm like, yeah, I think it would. So this is followed up 3 years later. They looked at this, and then they took it in 2016, and then they followed them up 3 years later to see, who's lived. They found that 4,600 people had died, most commonly of heart disease. And they found that people who had higher levels of gratitude are associated with a 9% lower risk of premature death. That's good. That's notable. So people who are grateful tend to live longer. And it went across the board. It didn't matter the illness. Heart disease, cancer, respiratory diseases, neurodegenerative diseases, infections, injuries. People who are grateful just tended to die at lower rates. This is amazing. So the implications that gratitude might be something that you guys are already planning it, good for you, or practicing it. And it's something that I tend to reflect on, but I don't keep a gratitude journal. I'm not much of a journal keeper anymore, but I do actually think I do think about all the good things in my life, and I think that's always a good thing. So what you can do, though, is if you have trouble just conjuring it up, writing down one thing a day might actually be helpful. Or discussing ways you're grateful a few times a week. Like just saying to someone, oh, I'm very grateful to have you as a friend, or this was such a fun night. I'm really happy we went out and did this. I mean, those kinds of small things can really add to the bigger picture. So that sort of leaves us to today.
If you can be grateful, just be grateful for having at least a roof over your head today, There's a lot of people around us that don't. So
there are a lot of people. You're exactly right. And I'm grateful for you guys. I really am. I'm grateful for you, Bryan, for all that you've done and supported the podcast, supported my practice, and pushed me to be a better person. I appreciate that.
That's so nice. I appreciate you guys. I'm grateful for you guys. I'm grateful for this moment right now. And if you're listening, I hope you're grateful too.
And I'm appreciative also of Sammy, who is new to us and here, but has great energy and a lot of fun. And you bring a special energy to this podcast. So thank you. Grateful for you too. And that wraps up the show for today. Please remember to like, subscribe, give us 5 stars. If you want links to the studies, go to my YouTube page, youtube.com/Dr. Greg. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like to cover, hit me up on the socials at Ask Dr. Greg. This is Dr. Greg and Bryan, and of course, DJ Sammy G, bidding you farewell. Until next time, be present, be flexible, and be kind.